The wind had a strange bite that afternoon in the parking lot outside a grocery store in Arlington, Virginia. It wasn't winter, but the chill in the air told a different story. The clouds above were thick and low, casting long shadows across the ground. A woman named Raven James had just finished loading groceries into the trunk of her car. She was humming softly to herself, an old tune her grandmother used to sing when life was gentler, when people didn't stare at you like you didn't belong in your own skin. She wasn't just anybody. Raven was calm, focused, and wore her strength like armor. But that didn't matter to Officer Dalton. He watched her from his patrol car parked a few spots away. His fingers drummed the steering wheel. Something about Raven rubbed him the wrong way, though he couldn't say why. She wasn't doing anything wrong, just a black woman putting bags into her car. Still, his hand reached for the door handle, and his instincts, misguided as they were, told him to act. Raven didn't see him approaching. She bent into the car to arrange the last bag, adjusting a container of eggs so they wouldn't crack on the ride home. That's when she heard the voice, "Ma'am, step away from the vehicle." She turned slowly, startled by the sharpness in his tone. "Excuse me?" Dalton's hand was already on his hip, hovering near his holster. "I said step away from the vehicle. Now." Raven blinked. "Officer, is something wrong?" There was confusion in her voice, but not fear. Not yet. She had dealt with tense situations before. She had worked around federal law enforcement her whole career. But she knew how quickly things could spin out of control, especially when someone came with the wrong intentions and a badge to back it. Dalton took a step closer. His eyes darted to the trunk, to her hands, back to her face. "I got a report of suspicious activity in this area. I'm just packing groceries," Raven said. "You can check my receipt if you'd like." But her calm voice seemed to challenge him. "You got ID on you?" he barked. She reached into her purse slowly. "Yes, sir, I do." It should have ended there. It should have been a quick glance at her ID and a quiet apology for the misunderstanding. But it didn't end there. Dalton's grip on the handle tightened as Raven's hand moved inside her bag. His nerves kicked in, fed not by danger, but by the narrative in his own head. In one blink, his world shifted. He shouted. She froze. Then there was a loud pop, a single gunshot. Screams echoed through the parking lot. Raven collapsed to the pavement, her blouse soaked in red, grocery bags spilled over. Apples rolled across the concrete like silent witnesses. People came running. Phones were out. Someone shouted, "Why did you shoot her? She didn't do anything." Dalton stepped back, his face pale, his weapon still drawn. In that moment, the badge on his chest didn't protect him. Not from the truth. Not from the dozens of witnesses now circling in. And certainly not from the video already being uploaded to social media. But what none of them knew, not the witnesses, not even the panicked EMTs now rushing to help, was who Raven James really was, or who would be watching when this footage reached the right eyes. 1,000 miles away, deep inside the Pentagon, a red notification flashed across a secured screen. Within minutes, a call was made, not to the police department, not to the mayor's office, but directly to the FBI's deputy command. The man who answered that call stood silently as he listened. His jaw clenched tighter with every word. He didn't speak. He didn't have to. He already knew who Raven was. He had personally recruited her for a top-level defense project. She wasn't just a civilian. She was a high-clearance contractor, trusted by both the Department of Defense and Homeland Security. And she wasn't just anybody. She was his goddaughter. The Pentagon didn't wait. Within the hour, a quiet but firm investigation had been launched. But this wasn't going to be quiet for long. Meanwhile, in another part of town, a teenage boy sat quietly on a city bus. His hoodie was worn at the sleeves. His backpack had a broken zipper, but his eyes were filled with kindness and a quiet maturity beyond his years. Jamal had seen a lot for someone only 17, and he had learned early that kindness didn't cost anything, except sometimes your pride. When a heavily pregnant woman boarded the bus, clutching her side and looking like she'd been walking too long, He stood up without thinking, offered her his seat with a soft smile. "Ma'am, you can sit here. I'm good." She looked at him, surprised. Maybe it was his age. Maybe it was the respect in his tone. But she sat down slowly, grateful, and nodded. "Thank you, young man." "No problem," he replied, pulling out his phone and opening a math app, trying to review notes for his exam. She studied him for a moment, noticed the busted strap on his backpack, the small notebook with equations scrawled in blue pen. Something about him stuck with her. When she got off the bus, she turned and slipped a folded note into his hand. "Don't open it until you get home." Then she stepped off the bus and disappeared into the crowded sidewalk. Back in the hospital, Raven fought for her life. Doctors moved quickly, surgeons were on standby, but the wound was deep and the damage went beyond her body. It was political, personal, and the people in high places were already mobilizing. Back at the police department, Officer Dalton sat in a conference room, hands shaking as his chief stormed in. "Do you even know who you shot?" he growled. Dalton's mouth opened, but no words came out. "You're done. Effective immediately. There's nothing I can do. You messed with the wrong person, and now it's bigger than you, bigger than this precinct. Hell, bigger than the whole damn city." The media caught wind of the story before the ink was even dry on the report. Headlines screamed across the internet. "Unarmed black woman shot by officer in grocery store lot." But the real storm hadn't even begun. Because when the Pentagon gets involved, no one is safe. And just as the story of Raven began to unravel across TV screens and social media feeds, another thread started weaving itself into history. A teenage boy, a kind gesture, and a folded note that would change the course of his life. As Jamal sat in his room that night, still wearing the same hoodie, he pulled the note from his pocket and opened it slowly. He didn't expect what he read. His eyes widened. He read it again, and again. Across town, Officer Dalton's home was already under surveillance. A quiet black SUV had parked across the street. Men in suits, faces unreadable, had started taking notes. Raven's pulse was weak, but she was still alive. Her eyelids fluttered. Her lips moved slightly. The nurse leaned in. "Ma'am, try not to speak." But she did. 2 words that no one in the room understood, except one agent, standing silently in the corner. His eyes narrowed. He took out his phone and made a call. Everything was about to change, and the world didn't know it yet. But the line between justice and silence had just been crossed. What happened next would shake the city to its core. And this was just the beginning. The hallway outside Raven's hospital room was thick with tension. Nurses whispered. Security guards exchanged looks. A man in a charcoal suit leaned against the far wall, arms crossed, eyes scanning everything. He didn't have a badge on display, but everyone knew he didn't need one. Agent Mitchell had worked for the Pentagon's Special Operations Division for nearly 2 decades. He wasn't the loud type. He was the type you didn't see coming until it was too late. Inside the room, Raven lay unconscious, tubes in her arms, and machines monitoring her every breath. She looked peaceful, but the chaos she had stirred stretched far beyond the walls of the hospital. Mitchell looked at her, almost like he was seeing something no one else could. There was history there, old, complicated history. She wasn't just another name in a file to him. She had once saved his life in Kabul during a covert extraction gone wrong. Now, he owed her everything. Back at the precinct, Officer Dalton sat in a gray chair across from 2 internal affairs agents. His hands were cuffed to the table. Sweat beaded at his temple. The room was cold, but his nerves made it feel like fire under his skin. They weren't yelling. They didn't have to. Every question was direct. Every pause meant something. "You say she made a sudden movement?" the lead agent asked. "Yes," Dalton replied, voice shaky. "I thought she was reaching for a weapon." "Did you see a weapon?" No. But she moved fast." The second agent leaned forward. "Dalton, there are 3 angles of video from witnesses. None show her moving fast. None show her being aggressive. What they do show is a woman following your instructions and then being shot while holding dough. Her purse. Dalton's mouth went dry. The lead agent didn't blink. Did you know she was a federal contractor, top clearance? Did you know she had just left a briefing with military intelligence? Dalton looked up, confused. What? No. How was I supposed to know that? That's the point, the agent said. You didn't care to find out. Outside the room, the police chief stood behind a glass pane, arms folded. He'd served over 30 years, seen officers come and go, some honorable, others a disgrace. But he had never seen the Pentagon step into one of his cases. Not like this. The mayor had already called. So had the governor's office. And just an hour ago, someone from the Department of Defense requested all internal body cam footage, even though Dalton's had mysteriously malfunctioned during the incident. That malfunction. It had triggered alarms way higher than the city police. Meanwhile, at a small apartment in southeast D.C., Jamal sat at his desk staring at the folded note. It had no name on it, no number. Just carefully written words that didn't feel real. You have no idea who just gave you this seat. Call this number. Today. Your future depends on it. And below that, a number. Area code 703, Northern Virginia. He did again and again. Jamal wasn't stupid. He had grown up on streets that taught you how to survive. He didn't trust things that felt too good to be true. But something about the woman's eyes stayed with him. She had looked at him like she knew him. Not the version everyone saw, not the hoodie and scuffed sneakers, but the one that studied math late into the night, trying to hold on to a dream, even when the world said he had no chance. He picked up his cracked phone and dialed the number. The phone rang once, then twice, then a voice answered. This is Langley. Who gave you this number? Jamal's heart skipped. This woman, on the bus. She was pregnant. She gave me a note. Silence. Describe her, the voice said. He did, stumbling a little. When he finished, the voice on the other end changed. It softened just slightly. Stay where you are. Someone's coming to see you. Don't leave. The call ended before he could say anything else. He sat back in his chair, hands shaking. His mom was in the kitchen, humming as she cooked rice and beans. She had no idea that the world outside their door was shifting around her son. At the hospital, Raven's vitals were stabilizing, but her body was still weak. Her mind, though, had never stopped working. In her head, faces and names flashed. People she'd worked with, projects she had classified, the one she was working on when she was shot. She couldn't say it aloud yet, but she remembered the flash drive in her bag. The same bag Officer Dalton had kicked aside after she collapsed. That drive contained more than notes. It held schematics, data connected to a high-security contract involving AI weapons control systems for military drones, the kind of data that didn't just disappear into police custody without consequences. Back at the station, one of the IA agents received a message on his phone. He read it, then looked up slowly at Dalton. You're officially under federal review, he said. They're freezing your accounts. Your department record is being pulled by the Pentagon. Your home? They're searching it now. Dalton paled. This is insane. It was a mistake. I didn't know who she was. That's the problem, the agent said. You saw a black woman and made a decision. You didn't ask. You didn't wait. And now, the people she worked for are treating this like an attack on national security. Dalton slumped in his chair. Outside, the press had started gathering. Protesters were lighting candles at the grocery store parking lot. The video had already gone viral. Millions of views. Hashtags were trending. People were asking questions. But no one yet knew how deep this went, and no one knew that the Pentagon had classified parts of the incident. That wasn't for public release, not yet. Back at Jamal's apartment, a black car pulled up outside. 2 men in suits stepped out. Jamal watched through the blinds, heart pounding. He opened the door before they could knock. Jamal King, one of them asked. He nodded. You made a call to a secure number. You need to come with us. We'll explain on the way. He looked back at his mom. I'll be back, he said. She looked confused but nodded slowly, wiping her hands on a towel. The car door closed behind him. Somewhere in the city, a call connected in a quiet office lined with redacted files and satellite feeds. A voice said, "We've identified the officer. He's not just guilty of excessive force. He accessed data during the incident. He searched her credentials from his squad car." "That's a breach," another voice replied, cold and sharp. "Then we're dealing with more than just racism. This might have been intentional." Back in the hospital, Raven's fingers twitched. Her eyelids fluttered. A nurse called for the doctor, and in the shadows of power, the wheels were already turning. What they didn't know yet, what no one knew, was that Raven had set something in motion even before she was shot. Something that would expose secrets buried deep within the system. And Jamal, he was about to find out that the seat he gave up was never just about kindness. It was about destiny. The car ride was silent at first. Jamal sat in the back seat, gripping the edge of the leather cushion like it was the only real thing left. The city outside blurred past him. Graffiti-tagged walls, old corner stores, boarded windows. He'd passed these streets 1,000 times, but they felt different now, like they were watching him. One of the agents finally spoke without turning around. "What do you know about Raven Briggs?" Jamal hesitated. "Nothing. I've never heard her." "Is that the woman from the news? The one who got shot?" "Yes," the agent said. "She's also the one who gave you that note." Jamal blinked. "That was her?" The other agent nodded. "She wasn't just a government contractor. She was on a classified project with direct Pentagon oversight. Someone wanted her quiet." "We don't know who yet." Jamal leaned forward. "But why me? Why give me a note? I don't even know her." "Maybe she knew you," the first agent said. "Or maybe she knew she was running out of time." Back at the hospital, Raven's eyes finally opened. Slowly. She blinked against the harsh white lights, her vision blurry but clearing. Her breathing was shallow and pain pulsed from her side, but she was awake. A nurse gasped and rushed to call the doctor. Raven's mind raced through fractured images, the officer's face, the sound of her body hitting the ground, the sharp sting of betrayal. She remembered dropping her bag, trying to shield the drive with her body. Her heart sank. "Where's my bag?" she whispered, barely audible. The nurse leaned in. "You're okay now. You're safe." Raven shook her head slightly. "No. My bag. Red zipper. It had something in it. It can't fall into the wrong hands." The nurse frowned, unsure what to say. Outside the room, Agent Mitchell had already arrived. He watched through the glass, eyes narrowed. He knew Raven wouldn't have let herself be caught off guard unless something was bigger than she could control. Meanwhile, inside the evidence locker of the police precinct, Raven's red bag sat untouched, sealed, tagged, and shelved. But someone had already broken the chain of custody. A tech analyst had accessed it late the night before. And that analyst, fresh out of training, had been offered a large sum of money by someone he'd never met. Just a message, no name, promising his student loans would disappear. All he had to do was hand off a small flash drive. What he didn't realize was that the Pentagon had placed an invisible tracer on that drive months ago, hidden inside its firmware. The moment it went online outside a secure network, they'd know. At a dark apartment across the city, a man in a military-style jacket sat at a desk littered with half-smoked cigarettes and open files. He had been following Raven for weeks. Former intelligence, burned by the system. Now he worked for the highest bidder, and someone had paid him to dig into a project codenamed Obsidian Circuit. Raven was the key to that project. And now she was awake. The man clicked his mouse. A map popped up with a blinking red dot. "She moved," he muttered. "She's awake." At the same time, Jamal's ride ended at a private facility that looked more like a data center than a government building. He was led inside, past security, scans and white-walled hallways, until he reached a quiet room. A woman in a crisp blue suit waited for him, a file in her hand. "Jamal King," she said. 17, straight A student, mathematics and physics track. Applied to MIT but didn't submit. "Why?" He sat down across from her, unsure what to say. Didn't think I had a chance. She opened the file. Raven Briggs thought you did. That's why she gave you the seat. Jamal looked confused. What do you mean? The woman slid a photo across the table. It showed Raven, years younger, standing with a group of black youth at a science mentorship program. In the corner, a smaller version of Jamal, 10 years old, beamed up at the camera, holding a robotics trophy. She used to run a STEM program in D.C. for gifted kids. You were one of them. You just didn't know who she was back then. Jamal stared at the photo, memories flickering back like old dreams. She remembered you, the woman continued. And she knew what she was carrying might endanger the people she loved. That's why she gave you the note. You weren't just a kid on the bus. You were a backup plan. Back at the hospital, Raven was sitting up now, her voice still low, but urgent. He accessed the drive. I don't know who he is, but he's in the system. I can feel it. Agent Mitchell stepped into the room. Then we need to move. Now. I need to see Jamal, she said. Mitchell raised an eyebrow. He's already under our protection. No, Raven said firmly. He's not protected. He's bait. Across the city, the rogue ex-Intel agent had already locked in on the facility Jamal was taken to. His team was small, just 2 hackers and a tech guy with military clearance they'd bought access to. They didn't plan on hurting anyone. They just wanted the drive. But the deeper they looked into Raven's files, the more they realized what she'd uncovered. Flaws in the AI command protocols for military drones that could allow a single corrupt agent to control strikes, surveillance, and even troop positioning. This wasn't just about a mistake in the system. It was about someone trying to rewrite the entire chain of command and using Raven as the scapegoat. The tension was no longer just about a police shooting. That was, the spark. But the fire had reached places no one expected. Jamal had become the thread connecting the old Raven to the woman lying in that hospital bed today. And whoever was behind the breach knew that if Jamal started asking questions, the whole thing could unravel. Raven pulled the IV from her arm, ignoring the pain. Mitchell tried to stop her. There's no time, she said. The moment they find that boy, they'll use him. What do you mean? He's not just a witness, he's holding a memory key, something I left behind, something they don't know exists yet. Back at the secure facility, Jamal sat in the room, still holding the photo. His heart was racing, but for the first time, it wasn't just fear. It was a spark. Something deeper. He knew now that Raven wasn't a stranger. She had believed in him before anyone else had, before the system had taught him to keep his head down, and now someone wanted to erase her. He looked up at the woman in the blue suit. I want to help. Whatever this is, I want in. She studied him for a moment. You sure? He nodded. Yeah, she gave me a seat. I'm not giving it back. But outside, in a black van parked across the street, a quiet signal pinged. Jamal had just gone from witness to target, and they were coming fast. Outside the facility, the van's back doors creaked open. 2 figures stepped out, dressed like telecom contractors, vests, toolkits, even fake ID tags. But they weren't there to fix wires. One of them adjusted his earpiece. Target confirmed. Inside. Light extraction, no casualties, unless necessary. Inside, Jamal had no idea they were coming. He sat in a cold metal chair, a laptop in front of him, showing an encrypted map of system files left behind by Raven's project. It didn't look like much, just folders with names like Protochain and Inertia Spec. But one file had a timestamp that caught his eye. It had been accessed just minutes after Raven was shot. Somebody's been inside her work already, Jamal said. The agent beside him leaned closer. Can you trace it? I think so. But whoever it is, they're not just poking around, they knew exactly what to look for. This was a surgical breach. The woman in the blue suit paced behind him, checking her watch. I don't like this. We're getting too much attention. I want a lockdown on this floor. Jamal kept typing, unaware that just 2 floors below, the fake contractors were already inside. flashing their fake badges and bypassing internal cameras with a signal jammer. One of them pulled out a small USB device and plugged it into a wall panel. The facility lights flickered. On the hospital side, Raven's monitor began to beep faster. She was pushing herself too hard, but she didn't care. She had to get out of that room. Her breath shallow, she pressed the call button again and again. When the nurse came in, Raven was already halfway out of bed, clutching the IV pole for balance. "Ma'am, you need to rest." "No," Raven said. "They're going after the boy." Now she didn't wait. She pulled on a hoodie someone had left behind, stumbled into the hallway, and found Mitchell waiting with a wheelchair. "You read my mind," she said. "I figured you'd try something." Mitchell wheeled her fast toward the elevator. "We picked up an encrypted signal coming from the secure facility. Someone's breaching it from inside." Raven's heart pounded. "They're not going to hurt Jamal. They want the drive. But if he figures out the key, if he unlocks the right file, they'll assume he's a threat." Back at the facility, Jamal finally accessed one of the hidden logs. A grainy video popped open. It showed a test simulation, drone formations, reacting to a human override. Then suddenly, the override failed. The drones kept moving, responding to a shadow command, one that didn't exist in the main database. "What is this?" Jamal whispered. The agent leaned over. "This is what Raven was trying to stop. It's controlling military hardware. But this command structure, it's not even from the Pentagon. This is external." The screen flickered. A second later, the wall monitors went black. Then red. An automated voice echoed, "Facility. Lockdown initiated. Unauthorized access detected." Jamal jumped to his feet. The agents grabbed their weapons. "It's here," the woman in the blue suit said. "They're here." The power cut for 3 seconds. When it came back, the van outside was gone, but a new signal had entered the network, one that was rapidly working through security layers like it had been pre-programmed. On the other side of the city, Raven was barely holding her head up as Mitchell drove them straight to the facility. Blue lights flashed behind them. Police. Escort. But it wasn't for show. They were already late. "They'll go for the third-floor server room," she muttered. "That's where the original schematics are stored." "How do they know that?" Mitchell asked. Raven looked at him with heavy eyes. "Because someone I trusted gave it to them." At the facility, Jamal ducked as glass shattered above him. The fake contractors had made it through the firewall room and now moved fast toward the inner lab. The agents surrounding Jamal began locking down doors, setting up temporary barricades. "We can't get a signal out," one said. "They've jammed comms." Jamal grabbed the laptop, clutching it like his life depended on it. "What do I do?" The woman looked at him. "Can you wipe the drive?" "I can do better. I can ghost it." "What does that mean?" Jamal sat down fast, typing so fast his fingers blurred. "I mirror it to a dead channel. Make it look like it's gone. They'll think it's destroyed, but we'll still have it." The agent stood in front of the door, weapons raised. On. The hallway monitor, 2 red dots closed in. The woman whispered, "Make it quick." Back in the car, Raven gripped the door handle as Mitchell slammed the brakes in front of the facility entrance. "You're in no shape to be here," he warned. Raven ignored him. She pulled the hood tight over her head and headed in. A guard at the door recognized her and stepped aside. Inside, the power continued to flicker. Jamal's hands didn't stop moving. He had 5 seconds left on the ghost protocol. 4, 3, then the door burst open. "Down!" An agent shouted, firing. A shot into the air. The first intruder ducked, returned fire, and chaos exploded inside the lab. Papers flew, screens cracked. Jamal hit the floor, holding the laptop to his chest. He rolled under the table, crawling until he reached a power line. He yanked it, killing the nearest console. The fake contractors moved with training. They didn't hesitate. One spotted Jamal under the desk and moved in fast, but before he could grab him, another voice cut through the air. "Put it down." It was Raven. She stood in the doorway, leaning on the wall, a gun in one hand, her other arm still shaking. Her hoodie was soaked with sweat. Her eyes locked onto the intruder's face. You, she said coldly. He smirked. Didn't think you'd wake up. You shouldn't have come here. He took one step forward. Then you shouldn't have. Made a copy. The air was still. Jamal didn't move. The agent stood frozen, weapons raised, waiting for the wrong twitch. Mitchell came in from behind, gun aimed, breath shallow. You think you can stop this? The intruder said to Raven. It's already started. Your little boy wonder can't change that. Raven smiled faintly. That's where you're wrong. The tension cracked like thunder, but the outcome still hanging in the balance.